Joe Biden's presidency may be coming to an end, but Senate Democrats are working overtime to cement a part of his legacy that could last for decades: judicial appointments. Now, this week, Senate Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, reached a deal with their Republican counterparts to forego votes on 4 appeals court nominees in exchange for a speedy process on a dozen lower court nominations. Now, Biden's first-term confirmations are currently running just behind the record 234 confirmations secured during Trump's first term. And time is running out to close that gap. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Alex Padilla of California. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Senator Padilla, first of all, thank you for joining us this morning. I know it is early, so we do appreciate your time. Can you just explain for us the decision that was made to broker this deal, if you will, in exchange for some of these lower court judge confirmations, which, to be clear, are important? Just this past week, the 200th judge was confirmed. The 200th judge that President Biden had put forth was confirmed, and it's historic. However, leaving 4 appeals court seats open in order for Donald Trump to be able to fill them, help us understand the deal that was brokered here.
Yeah, no, look, I appreciate the question, and good morning, everybody, bright and early from the West Coast. What's unclear is if this deal was simply sort of the schedule for the week, or if this is a deal for the rest of the month, the rest of the session of Congress. Senator Schumer said, well, there's shaded away maybe some appointments where the votes weren't necessarily there. Well, let's try. We got to try everything we can every day that we can between now and the end of session to confirm as many federal judges as possible, circuit court and district courts. So I do think my colleagues are ready to, stay overnight yet again, work into Fridays or through the weekends, whatever it takes to get as many judges confirmed as possible. I think the country is well aware of the importance of Supreme Court justices when it comes to important policy, law, and the future of our country. We should not lose sight of how important circuit court judges are and district court judges are for decades to come.
Well, to that point, you've got judges urging Congress to pass a bill that would expand federal trial courts. This from Bloomberg. The Senate unanimously passed the Judges Act, sponsored by Senators Todd Young and Chris Coons, in August, that would add 63 permanent and 3 temporary federal district judgeships handed out in tranches over the next decade. Still, the legislation could face opposition from Democrats. Representative Gerald Nadler, the Judiciary Committee's ranking member, said last week he was leery of giving President-elect Donald Trump more judges to appoint. How are you thinking about this, sir?
Yeah, look, I'm actually a co-sponsor of that legislation, and in the negotiations, look, it was tricky. You had Republicans who did not want to support providing potentially President Biden in a second term more judges to appoint, or potential President Harris in her first term more judges to appoint, just as Democrats are concerned about President Trump appointing more judges. So the bill was structured to sort of pace the expansion of the judiciary so that the next president would have a few more, the president after that would have a few more, and the term after that would have a few more. So I still remain supportive of the legislation because at the end of the day, there are capacity concerns. We have judges in a number of districts throughout the country, including in California, that are overworked. Their caseload is huge. And when it's delays in the justice system, we know that justice delayed is justice denied. So I'm still supportive of the legislation, and we'll see what the House of Representatives does between now and the end of session.
Senator, I know Senator Schumer's representative indicated that the trade, going back to the trade for the 4 circuit judges, for the lower court appointment judges, saying that they all lack the votes to get confirmed. I just want to put out there, that's the fight. That's the fight. At the end of the day, the appeals court seats are much more valuable to Donald Trump than the lower court seats. Why? Because he knows everything flows upstream. And the appeals court is going to make a louder bang and noise for his purposes than a lower court. But that aside, you have that process in which the Democrats are trying to maneuver and position for Joe Biden's remaining months. You have the Washington Post, on the other hand, reporting that Jack Smith's team is about to be fired by Donald Trump, noting President Donald Trump plans to fire the entire team that worked with Special Counsel Jack Smith to pursue 2 federal prosecutions against the former president, including career attorneys typically protected from political retribution. What do Democrats plan to do when this happens? Because we know it's happening. I mean, so it's not a question of, oh, well, maybe this will happen and people sitting around in Washington with their thumbs in the usual places. And then all of a sudden this happens and everybody in Washington is shocked. Oh, my God, and doesn't have a plan. So we know he's going to do it. He's telling us going to do it. What's the plan, particularly to protect those career lawyers who did their jobs?
Right. So, look, I appreciate the question, because for all the attention there's been about what's going to happen come January 20th and beyond, there's a lot that can and needs to be done in the interim, whether it's confirming these judges that we've been talking about, whether it's, from a California perspective here, protecting FEMA dollars, protecting ensuring some EPA waivers and HHS waivers that have been pending and we need finalized before Trump takes office. But when it comes to things like maybe the Matt Gaetz investigation, we've got to preserve the records of the House ethics investigation, the FBI investigations, for our consideration going forward. And in this particular case, what can we do to preserve the professionals within the agency? This is why the Attorney General position is so important. We know Trump is going to try to politicize the Department of Justice. This is just one small example of what's to come. So we have to protect the professionals, but also protect the information, the evidence, the information they've gathered, whether it's for policymaking down the road or for true consideration, right? The Senate has the advice and consent role to play when it comes to the president selecting his cabinet and other administration officials. Stakes are high, and we're going to continue to work hard all the way to the last day.
Let's talk about this advise and consent role, Senator. Obviously, Matt Gaetz was Donald Trump's first selection for Attorney General. He is now out. His new selection, Pam Bondi, she has not been accused or investigated for paying for sex with an underage person. Okay, but Pam Bondi has shown how willing she is to use her authority to help Donald Trump. This is from the Washington Post. In the wake of Trump's 2020 election loss, Bondi was one of a coterie of Trump allies who barnstormed the country to allege that the election results were suspect. She traveled to Pennsylvania, where she appeared at press events with longtime Trump advisor Corey Lewandowski and former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. She was no longer the Attorney General of Florida at that point, but her past title was still used in news reports and news conferences, partly as a means of establishing her authority. Pam Bondi is actually, at least has the basic qualifications to serve as Attorney General. She did serve as Florida's top prosecutor for a number of years. She's been a active lawyer for, I believe, about 20 years of experience. What concerns do you have about former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi serving as the country's Attorney General?
Yeah, well, I think for starters, to President Trump's team and the transition team, nice try. I think a lot of people are saying they put out Matt Gaetz in the beginning, how crazy and nonsensical that was to try to make Pam Bondi look normal and much more easily confirmable. And so now the questions begin. And as California's former Secretary of State, for me, it starts with these false accusations of massive voter fraud in the 2020 election, that refusal to accept the results of the 2020 election. She should know better as a former Attorney General. We asked for the evidence back then, didn't get it. Here we are 8 years later, still no evidence of massive voter fraud. Other questions include, why she was so quick to dismiss charges against Trump University for their scamming of so many people across the country soon after she got a political contribution from, Trump's foundation. That is suspect. The fact that she defended him in his first impeachment, also calls into question if she were to be confirmed, because, hey, Republicans want to just give Trump what he wants. She might be confirmed. Is she going to be an independent Attorney General upholding the Constitution of the United States, or is she planning to do Trump's personal bidding? We know what Trump wants, and so, looking forward to the confirmation hearing as a member of the judiciary.
So, Senator, I have questions about Bondi. I'll ask you about them in the next block. But before we go to commercial break, I want to ask you about the funding fight that is being set up on the Hill right now. You got until December 20th. That's the deadline to fund the government, avert a shutdown. There are some Republicans who want to see that push ahead into January. How do you think this lands?
Yeah, I think still to be determined. There's still time to strike a deal, get a responsible budget for the fiscal year that we've already begun. And regardless of whether it's before the 20th or after the 20th, between the filibuster rules in the Senate and such a narrow majority in the House, it has to be bipartisan at the end of the day. You even see a split amongst House Republican leadership. Scalise is saying one thing, Speaker Johnson saying another. So a lot still to hash out in the next couple of weeks.